Hello everyone! Today I'm drawing a Ninja Turtle, and not just any turtle, it's Leonardo. He's my favorite character from TMNT. Ever since I was a kid, he's been the one I like the most. I'm quickly sketching him out, speeding things up a bit, and on a separate sheet of paper on the left, I decided to show you roughly how to establish the basic proportions. I'm laying out the skeleton, the body's pose, and the main joints. This is a really simple way to set up the proportions. Then, you can build on these basic proportions to create the sketch. So, that's how I quickly sketch it out. And then I move on to drawing Leonardo himself. I found this awesome image online, and I'm using it as a reference. Since he'll be partially in shadow, I can make mistakes in the areas that will be heavily shaded and easily fix them later. But in the areas where parts of his body will be lit, I can't afford to make any mistakes. I have to slow down a bit there and get it right the first time. Sometimes it's helpful to start with the lit part, where you can't make a mistake and then build the shadowed part around it. That way, you're less likely to mess up the proportions. Alright, so this drawing definitely isn't what you'd call simple, and it's probably not your typical tutorial like we usually have on the channel. But I wanted to do something cool and epic. I'll definitely be drawing a Ninja Turtle in a simpler style soon, something that will be easier to follow along with. So make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss it. We've got a ton of awesome videos coming out regularly. Oh, and by the way, I'm working on a pretty small piece of paper here. It's a 5 size.
No.
Lately, I've been really into drawing buff characters, and Leo is no exception. I made him super jacked. I recently drew a buff Spider-Man, and I think that turned out pretty cool too. You can check it out if you haven't already. There's a link up in the top right corner and in the description as usual. By the way, I've drawn other buff guys before. Here's another picture I did. I colored this one with colored pencils. It was a really cool and complex drawing, but for some reason it didn't get many views. That's a bummer. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that Leonardo was my favorite Ninja Turtle when I was a kid. Let me know in the comments who your favorite Ninja Turtle is now. Over the years, the Ninja Turtles have been in a lot of different cartoons and movies, and their personalities have changed a bit. They all have their own unique qualities. So, I'm curious to know who your favorite is now, and why. Personally, I liked Leonardo because he was the most rational, level-headed, and probably the wisest. Obviously, Donatello was much more inventive from a scientific standpoint, but Leonardo was wise, like a philosopher. I really admired that about him. At first, I was going to draw a knot on his belt, but then I realized it would be really hard to add simple shadows, and I wanted the shadows to be simple. So in the end, I ended up coloring in most of the belt and the strap. That's when I started thinking about how I was going to add highlights to the belt. I ended up coloring in most of the belt. I probably could have just colored the whole thing black and not worried about it, but since I decided to add highlights, I had to think really hard about how they would look. I'm not super happy with how the belt turned out. It doesn't look very natural. Drawing muscular characters is a great way to learn about anatomy. In this case, of course, we're not drawing human anatomy, we're drawing a mutant turtle, so we can take a lot more artistic liberties. But it's actually easier to draw a mutant like this. If we make the shoulders too wide or the arms too long, it's not going to look as weird on a mutant turtle as it would on a superhero like Spider-Man. With a superhero, it's much more important to follow human proportions. A ninja turtle can be less human-like. In this case, I'm following the proportions that the original artist set up and trying to recreate the same look. Maybe I'll add a few of my own touches, like more muscles and definition in some areas. Okay, so the shadows and highlights were definitely tricky. Sometimes it's easier to create a hyper-realistic look than a simplified one. It can be hard to decide what to keep and what to shade when you're going for a more realistic style, because you can add so many different levels of darkness and create a more detailed image. The guard on his sword ended up being really small, and there's no going back now. I could have used a white pen to make it bigger, but I decided against it. Let's just say it is what it is. Unfortunately, my camera stopped recording at this point, so I didn't capture the whole process of drawing the legs. But I decided to post this video anyway. I think the drawing turned out pretty well, and it would be a shame to just delete the video and not share at least part of it with you. If you liked it, please give it a like. It really motivates me and helps me keep drawing, even when I run into little hiccups like this. Thanks. I'm finishing up the drawing now and taking a final look. And don't forget, I'll be drawing a simpler Ninja Turtle soon, one that everyone can follow along with, so stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. You'll find a playlist with my other drawings on the left, and YouTube has some recommendations for you based on your preferences on the right. That's it for today. See you next time.